Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Eric, aka the critgod, and we are here today. I'm very excited to finally make this video. We're here today to make an in-depth video over my favorite leader in the game, the critgod, Mass Saiyan. Here he is, baby. So get ready for a long video because this is gonna be pretty long. I mean, it's gonna be in depth about everything you need to know. I'm gonna talk about everything as if you were new. This is for anybody out there, whether you're new, you're experienced, or you're just, trying to get a better insight on what the leader does and what the deck does. So I'm just going to go over everything and anything. So we're going to start with the leader itself. Excuse me, you're going to hear me doing a lot of that. This is the leader itself, the Mass Saiyan. So what does he do? It's very good. What does he do? So activate main. I'm just going to read it off. Place the top 3 cards of your deck in the drop area. If you place a black card in the drop area with this skill, this card gains critical. So if y'all don't know what critical is for whatever reason, whenever you take life damage normally, it would go to your hand, but critical makes it to where it just goes straight to the drop. So you don't even get that card for the duration of a turn. And if a card of any other color is placed in the drop area, this card also gains 5,000 power for the duration of the turn. So potentially this leader could be 15,000 critical on any given turn, which is pretty good. I mean, if you're being starved from awakening or something like that, you can still apply pressure with your leader because you can be 15k. When you awaken, he draws 2 cards, so he's not an untapped leader, which is kind of unfortunate, but it'd be pretty busted if he was an untapped leader. Either way, drawing 2 is actually very good for this deck because I would say that the only issue with this deck is probably its draw power, which I try to complement to the best of my ability with the cards I play and the color. On the backside, he does the exact same thing. Gain 5,000 on non-black, gain critical on black card, which is still good. You can go up to 20k on your leader, and something neat you can do is you can activate main on this side. You can awaken to draw 2, and since this is technically a new card, you can actually activate its ability again, and you can actually go to 25,000 critical, which is, I mean, if this doesn't get negated when he's 25,000 critical strike, that's gonna be hard. I mean, if you combo like Chomp or something, it's gonna be a hard hit to get out of. Also, he has the regular auto when he attacks, draw a card. So now getting into the actual deck. So this is the build that I'm gonna be probably testing once the anniversary box comes out. This is never final. Deck builds are always changing depending on the meta. You can always find new cards that are good. You can always change your opinion on certain cards. So this is never going to be final, and this might not be how you want to build it. So this is just me presenting my build and my opinions on it, so that you can maybe get a better understanding of how I build a deck and how I play with it. So I'm just gonna go. I have a certain order here, so we're gonna start off with a super combo, just because it's a stable card of the deck, and I want to get this one out of the way first. I use the Kai Supreme Kai Time. So if you don't know what it does, when you combo with this card, there are 5 or more cards in your warp. You draw a card, and then it gains 10,000 combo power. So it's your regular super combo, obviously 10,000 draw card, but the condition is not life or sparking, which exists nowadays. But you actually have to have cards in your warp, which is not very hard to do given this is going to be an overwhelm deck. This is an overwhelm based deck. And if you don't know what overwhelm is, I'll explain it later in the deck. But yeah, I choose this one over things like the Roshi or the Trunks because mainly because I'm not always going to be at 4 life probably. It might sound kind of dumb, but I've found that if you get starved from awakening or something like that, it's still very easy for you to overwhelm and get this super combo enabled. And the Trunks one is good, but since I'm always using overwhelm, then it wouldn't really be enabled. It's a 0-10k, so it could come in handy in some very niche situations, like using it against, what's that card called? The Fuchsia Mystery that negates all your card's abilities. So in that kind of situation, it would be better to be using the Roshi, but I prefer this one. Moving on, we're gonna start with the color cards first. So I'm running red with this deck. So it's black red. First off, we have, this was actually Chain Attack Trunks, but I ended up replacing it with 3 copies of Dependable Mom Bulma. If you don't know what she does, she's a 1-drop for red, 1-drop red, 5k. That she has an activate main that says you switch her to rest mode, and you draw a card, and you choose one of your other battle cards, and it gains 5k. So I really like this card, and actually, the one who kind of suggested this to me and made me consider putting it in the deck is my boy Marcus. I don't know if y'all know him. He's talked before with Mass Saiyan, and he's been helping me, and we've been talking about Mass Saiyan builds. So shout out to him, and a couple other people I'll mention later. I've been talking a lot about more towards the end, so I can just put everyone together in one. But he gave me the idea to play this card because, like when I was playing it earlier with yellow, I was playing Videl, which does the exact same thing as Bulma, but she's just yellow. And this card is actually really good because it can basically basically replaces itself. It pumps something, probably like your overarm, for example. It gives it the extra 5k to put it in a threshold where they have to combo an extra card, which is always it's always amazing, especially in these aggro decks. And she can also draw aggro towards her instead of my leader, so I can get more benefit out of self-awakening cards. So this card's really good. I really like it. Next up, we have 3 copies of Burst Attacks on Gohan, and I absolutely love this card. I feel like at this point in the game, where we are in the game, I actually feel pretty comfortable tapping 3 for this card. I had like I said earlier, I took Chain Attack out for this card, and I really like Chain Attack because I could tap for 2 energy and evolve on top of the 1-drop Trunks I'll talk about later, if you don't know what it is. And you could actually tap 2 to put cards like this one out instead of having to tap the 3. But I actually feel like we're in a point in the game where I can feel pretty safe tapping 3 for this card. And this card's very good because he is 3-drop. He requires 2 red. He's critical. And when he attacks, if you have 4 or less cards in your hand, you draw 2 cards, which is very good, especially in this deck. Because if I don't see cards that I need to draw, if I don't see self-awakening cards and I'm really low on my hand, I can play this and at least draw a couple cards. And he's crit too, so your opponent's probably going to want to combo out of this because nobody really likes taking crits, right? So that's also why the leader is good. Nobody likes taking crits. The leader literally has it built into him, which is insane, in my opinion. I love this leader. It's so good. So yeah, this card's very good. I really like it as well. I like every card in this deck. You're gonna hear me saying that a lot because all the cards I have available to me are very good, and I love this deck. Next up, we have 3 copies of Saiyan Kaba. So this is one of the self-awakening cards. When he attacks, you can choose 1 card in your life and add it to your hand, and if you do so, he will gain 10,000 power and double strike. So he's a 1-drop for 1 red, and he's 5,000, but he will go up to 15,000 if you decide to take the life, and he will gain double strike. So this is a pretty good card. I mean, early game, late game. Early game you can use it to sneak in a double strike. Late game you can use it to finish the game. Most of the times your opponent will be at 2 health, even though they probably don't want to against this deck because Champa exists and cards like Kaba exist. So this guy is very, very good to sneak in early or even in late game. I mean, there's been so many instances where I've won with this card, and it's very good if you can use it efficiently. Next up, we have 3 copies of Pride and Justice Topo. Now, this card is actually pretty good in any deck, any red deck for that. So he's a counterattack. So meaning you can use him and play him. You put him into play when you negate with him. His permanent says that if your leader card or your opponent's card has 15,000 or more power, he becomes a 2-drop rather than a 4-drop. And his auto says whenever he swings at something, if he kills it, if he KOs it, he will restand, which is very, very good. I mean, he's a board clear. You know, obviously he can get negated or whatever, but he's really good to bait negates as well because you know nobody wants to get their board cleared by one card. You know, but yeah, I mean, you can even use him for example early game if you absolutely have no other plays, for example, and you really just want to play this card. When your leader uses the ability, if he gains the 5,000, he is now at 15,000. So you can actually play this for two. It doesn't go off the card's or leader's original power. It's based off of the current power. So this card's insane. I love it. Next up, we have 2 copies of Foreseeing Hit. Now, this is probably the best red card I have in this deck because this card is insane. And I think we can all agree, if you know this game, hit red deck, this card's absolutely crazy. I mean, I love this card. So, he's a 4-drop for 2 red. He is double strike 20,000, and when you play him from your hand, your opponent literally just reveals their hand, which is already an insane effect. But on top of that, you choose up to 2 battle cards with 35,000 or less power from their hand, and you send them to their warp. And at the end of their next turn, they get their cards back. So you literally play this. You can take their win condition from them or super combos. You can take anything that's not an extra card. Well, that's a lie. You can't take victory strike from them, which kind of sucks. But you can take away their pieces. And then even if you're tapped out, you have overarm. So this card is just so good to end games, and even if it doesn't end the game, you're taking away your opponent's pieces so that you can win the next turn, you know. So this card's beautiful. This card's very, very beautiful. Next up, and for the last of the red cards, we have 4 copies of Intensifying Power Trunks. So this is the other Self-Awakening card. He does the same exact thing as the Kaba did from earlier, but he gains critical instead of double strike, which is very good because, you know, more critical. You know, you're kind of getting the theme. You have Kaba that's critical, you have the leader that's critical. And yeah, I mean, this card's pretty simple. It's the same thing as the Kaba. It's not as great of a game ender, probably, because he doesn't naturally have double strike, but there's ways to fix that. You know, Champa exists. Actually, that's not the last of the red cards, but I'll talk about Champa later in the deck. My bad. So now we're gonna get into the black cards. So to talk about the black cards, we need to talk about the overall engine. So I'm gonna talk first. I have 2 copies of Bardock Fully Unleashed. So what overall is, if you don't know, I'm gonna explain it really quickly. So overall is, so he has overall 5 on this card. I don't think you can see it, but his the keyword is a keyword, and it says overall 5. And what that means is if you have at least 5 cards in your drop area, you can choose to send all of those cards in your drop area to your warp, and you can play this card for free, basically. So some cards will have a cost attached to them, but it's normally way lower than, you know, their actual cost up here. Normally their cost up here correlates with the amount of cards you need in your drop area. So this guy has a 5 cost, so he has an overall cost of 5. And when you play him using overall, you choose all of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 6 or higher, and you warp them. So this is really good for decks that like to go very, very fast. So Green Broly exists in the meta currently, and they will normally have their 6 drop out by turn 2. So this card will get rid of it, which is really good. You know, they can put up their 8 drop, which kind of sucks, but there's always ways around that kind of stuff. But on top of that, he's also a free 25,000 striker, and he's a Bardock Zeno, meaning that you can evolve potentially the 5-drop Bardock Zeno that I will talk about later, which is literally my favorite card in the game. So next up we have 3 copies of Revived Ravager Vegeta. So this card's very good. So he's a 3. So again, you see the 3 cost, and then he's an overarm 3. He is critical, and when you play him with overarm, you can place up to 3 cards from the top of your deck in your drop area. So your leader will place 3 cards in your drop, and this guy can place up to 3 more. So this is good. You might be thinking, well, what's the point of that? So you can play him, and you can actually set yourself up for next turn. So the next turn I'm going to talk about Fu. It's very good for that. So you can play this guy, mill another 3 cards, and then next turn you can play. So I have 3 copies of this as well in my deck. You can play Fu. So this card's very good. Scientist Fu. I would say this is probably the single-handedly, with the anniversary box coming out, I would actually say this is the second best black card in my deck. But so he's a 7 cost. He has an overwhelm cost of 7, meaning you need 7 cards, right? Normally when you overwhelm, you're probably going to need to wait 2 turns to overwhelm this, right? Because it's 7 cards. But with this guy, you overwhelm, you mill another 3, and the next turn you're going to be able to mill 3 with your leader, then you have 6, and you'll probably have comboed something off, or something on your field will have been killed, so then you'll have the 7th card in your drop area to be able to do this right the next turn. And what Fu does, he's an overwhelm 7 for 1 energy, so he actually costs 1 energy. He's 25,000 to double strike, which is very good for 1 energy. And when you play him using overwhelm, you draw 2 cards. So this is another way to draw. And he's beautiful. This is one of my favorite cards because he's so good. And I think overwhelm is probably the most broken engine in the deck. I mean, that's my opinion. You can disagree with it, but man, you're playing all of these cards for free, 1, 2 energy that have very good effects and very good abilities. I mean, this guy is literally 1 energy. You're playing him, he's 25,000 double strike. I mean, you combine it with cards like this that you can put him out right the next turn after overwhelming, then I think he's really good. So next up, we have some extra cards. So first, I run 3 of the Power Burst negate. I only run this because it's a sparking negate, you know. I don't particularly like running negates in this deck, to be completely honest, because it's aggro. But the fact that I mill myself gives me an option to use this negate. So Power Burst is a counterattack that if my leader card is black, he will negate the attack. And I can choose up to 1 black battle card from my drop area, or warp with an energy cost of 1 and add it to your hand. So I don't have any black cards that have an energy cost of 1, but that's what he does. So he's really good in other decks. You know, Kid Goku will pick up a bunch of black 1 cost cards. Announcer, once it comes back, will actually, like, this negate's really good because you can pick up your announcer cards back up. But the real reason why I use this is because of the permanent, Sparking 5. So if you have at least 5 cards in your drop area, you can take 1 life instead of having to pay the energy cost, which is really good in this deck because I tend to tap out during my turn to go aggressively. So being able to sit back on this to just take a life and negate an attack that could, you know, potentially kill me or do a lot of damage to me is very good. And the other extra card I run in my deck is red. It is Planet M2, so it's a 1 cost red card. And man, this is very good. So if you don't know what Planet M2 does, I'll read off the auto in case you care. So when this card is placed in the battle area, if your leader card is Dr. Mew, you draw a card. So if you're playing the Dr. Mew, it actually replaces itself. But the reason this card is played in decks other than Dr. Mew, so it says, switch this card to rest mode. If it's your turn, choose up to 1 of your opponent's leader cards or battle cards, and it loses 5,000 power. So being able to -5 your opponent's leader or anything on their battlefield as long as it doesn't have barrier is insane. I mean, this card is very good for controlling matchups like Kid Goku that are very hard for me because of all the draw it has. You can kill their Kid Gokus, you can kill their androids. I mean, just the fact that you get a -5 every single turn while this card is out is very, very good. So those are all the, I guess, old cards, more or less. Now I'm gonna start getting into some of the newer cards since I did say this is my post anniversary box build. So I don't run too many of them. I run 3 of the new cards, but they're, I mean, oh man, these cards are beautiful. They're very, very, very good, and I think they may or may not elevate Mass Saiyan or even any other Overwhelm deck up to at least being a successful rogue deck. So I have proxies for them. So first off, we have Mass Saiyan, Beguiled Warrior. So what he does, he's an Overwhelm 4 for 1 energy. Excuse me. And his auto is when you play him with Overwhelm, you choose up to 1 battle card in your hand with Masked in his name, with an energy cost of 5 or less, other than himself. And you play him. Which is, I mean, it's insane, dude. You're literally playing a card that's 5 or less. A maximum of 5 for 1. And what I like to do with this card, I like to play Time Trauma Massing. I run 3 copies of this. I run 3 copies of both. And so Time Trauma is very good. First of all, because you're playing him for 1 energy rather than 3. And when you play him, if your leader card is black, you can choose up to 2 cards in your life and put them in your hand. If you choose at least 1, you warp one of your opponent's cards with an energy cost of 5 or less. So for 1 energy, you put this guy down, you put this guy down, you can self-awaken substantially too. I mean, 2 life is nothing to really laugh at. And you get removal, all for 1 energy. That's really good. I don't think there's really anything else to say about that. That's a really, really good combination, and it's a very good card. I mean, it could, this card alone might be able to throw this deck into a more competitive standpoint because it's very good. Next up, we have 3 copies of Bardock Awakened Instinct. This is a card I really like, but I'm kind of iffy on. I don't know, because there's a lot of good black cards out there now, and I'm just gonna read this card first, so I can talk more about it. So, he's an Overwhelm for 4. He's free. He's 20,000. And when you play him using Overwhelm, you draw 2 cards and you discard 1. So what I like about him is that normally when you Overwhelm, you're probably going to -1 on the play of Overwhelm. So what this card does is he basically makes you break even on an Overwhelm play. Other than, it lets you see 2 new cards in your deck, which is also very good. Digging is very important in this game. You always need to be seeing new cards, replacing cards, and having a net gain of cards so that you're able to combo and make sure you're getting hits on your opponent, right? As well as being able to defend and, actually having cards to play. So I really like this card because he makes you break even. But, there's a lot of good Overwhelm cards out there, and there's a lot of good red cards out there. So I don't know if I'll keep this guy in the deck. I think I will because, again, it's because of the digging power. The fact that you get to see 2 new cards is very good, especially in this deck. So I think this card will stay in. And finally, for the single most important cards in the deck, in my opinion, I love these cards. These are the staple of the deck. These are why everybody is always so scared of this deck, I would say. I run 6 Champas in my deck total, and what that means is if you don't know what a Champa is, it's based off of a card from set 1 called Furthering Destruction Champa, and this guy, what's he called? Hidden Power Ace Supreme Kai. So he does basically the same thing as Champa, and he's a 1-cost 10k combo that when you combo with him, you choose up to 1 of your attacking cards, and it gains double strike. So imagine, you have your leader, you gain your 5k crit, and you combo this guy on turn 1. Your leader is now 25,000 double strike critical. How good is that? I mean, your opponent can't really do anything about it unless they combo most of their hand away on turn 1, which is still really good for you. Yeah, sure, don't take the hit, but you're netting a lot of loss for yourself. And a card that's even better from the anniversary box is a Crack in Space-Time. This card is amazing. I was looking through the list for the anniversary box cards, and I literally saw this card at the end, and I flipped out. I'm like, my boy is getting some support. I'm so excited, and this card is actually very, very, very good. And some people might think, oh well, it's just an extra 5k. So he does what the Kai does. So this is a 1-cost 10k combo, but this card is a 1-cost 15,000 combo, and it only goes on a black Saiyan leader. So if your leader card's a black Saiyan leader, it gains 15,000 power and double strike for the duration of the turn. And this actually matters a lot. So the extra 5,000 can matter a lot. So let's say you're playing against a Shenron deck and they get five Dragon Balls in their drop, or 5 cards in their drop area. Period. Their super combo is now enabled, and during your turn, normally you could use your leaves to activate main and combo Champo or a Kai. So now you're at 25,000, right? If they so that's really good. But if your opponent happens to have 2 super combos in their hand, they can just use those 2. Well, what this card does, now your leader is going to be able to be 30,000 double strike crit on turn 1. So it's kind of niche, but if your opponent really wanted to combo away from the hit, they could use a 0-10k super combo, because that's what most people use nowadays. They would just combo that or 2 of them and be like, okay, I just really don't want to take this double crit. What this does, it adds the extra oomph to make sure that they don't combo out of it. So I mean, it's amazing. The extra 5k is so valuable. Your leader's 30k. Even on the back, he will go up to 35 with the card, meaning that by that time, their leader will probably be at 15. So if you get the 5,000 on your leader, you're 20, then you're 35, meaning that they have to once again use the extra card to combo out of your hit, which is very, very, very valuable. Because the more cards your opponent has to throw away to protect the hit, the better you are off to act more offensively. So that's it for the 50 cards in my main deck. I will talk about my side deck, although this one is a little more iffy. This is one I definitely have to work on a lot more, and I would say this is more of a personal preference thing. So the main deck too. So this is like I said at the beginning of the video. These 50 cards are never final. If I feel that's probably a lie. So if I ever reach a point where I'm completely satisfied with my 50 cards, then I probably won't change them. But like I said, there's always new cards coming out. The meta is always shifting, and you always have to adapt to the meta. This is very, very important. This is always a very important point that players like Anthony Hernandez make. Like, this is such an important point. You always need to be adapting to the meta. You always need to be testing. You always need to be spending time playing decks, playing against decks, trying to figure out what's good. So again, the main point of this video is just to show you my deck, show you how I play Mass Saiyan, so you can get a better understanding of it, and if you want to build it, maybe have a better understanding of how to build it. But I also want to make the point that I've played this leader ever since I started playing a little bit over a year ago, and ever since, and especially recently, I think that if you spend enough time building something that you like, that you think could be good, do it. Spend time testing against the meta. Do everything that you feel you can do, and you're probably going to reach a point where you can at least top. Are you always going to win? Probably not. Let's be realistic. You're probably not always going to win. This deck, can it win? Yeah, I think it can win. I think it can win events. But is it likely to? Maybe. I mean, who knows? After June 21st, the meta is probably going to change again. So anything's up for grabs. Even now, anything's up for grabs. But again, and I said this when back at the PPG April 20th, when Mr. Eggman, shout out to him, one of my friends, I said it in that deck profile too. If you spend enough time playing a deck you love and perfecting it, you're probably going to get somewhere. So guys, if there's a leader you like out there, please spend the time working with it if you truly believe it can top. So now let's move on to the sideboard. So first off, I have 2 copies of Cronoa. So if you don't know what this does, this shuts down the Shugesh super combo for the game. So when you play it, you draw a card. It has deflect too, meaning that they can't cold bloodlust it. And your opponent may not play battle cards from their hand with the skills of cards with super combo for the duration of the game. The game. The game. Again, the game. Which is, I still don't agree with this card, but... And another thing, Shugesh is actually not an issue for my deck. I can always end up playing around Shugesh. The issue is what they play off of Shugesh. So normally your opponent is going to go Shugesh into Explosive Spirit Son Goku and pop your card. I don't have an issue with that. The issue I have is that Explosive Spirit Son Goku is a blocker, meaning that they basically negate 2 of your attacks. They pop the one that's in motion with Explosive, and then they can block with him, which is quite annoying. So that's really the only reason I play Cronoa. Also, because I don't want them Shugeshing into, like, Path to Greatness, anything like that. The slower I can make their deck go, the better for me, because that gives me more time to kill you and make you utilize resources. Next up, this is kind of a, I guess, spice card. This is just one of the cards I'm trying out. So I actually have a 5-star ball, and this is, I would say, for maybe more aggressive matchups. So what 5-star ball does, activate main, you draw a card, and you choose up to one of your battle cards and it gains blocker until the end of your opponent's next turn. So this is really just more of a defensive card. If I have something out there I don't want to swing with, or I need to be more defensive during my opponent's turn, I can give one of my cards blocker and use that to my advantage. There's nothing really else to that. Mass Saiyan lacks a lot of defense. So even with the negates, even with the super combos and all that, I lack a lot of defense. Obviously, mainly because I'm an aggro deck. I don't want to be spending too many of my 50 cards built towards defense. I want to be aggro. I want to kill you fast, right? But if I really need it, this is going to be there for me to be more defensive. Next up, I have 2 copies of Crisis Crusher Son Goku. This card is very, very good because it shuts down a lot of self-awakening capabilities, including mine, unfortunately. But I have cards like the Time Trauma Mass Saiyan, and I can always combo this card off. It's not the biggest issue. The reason I cite this is for the Kid Goku matchup, because they always have that Android out or that Kid Goku out. This will pop it for free, which is very good because Kid Goku relies a lot on that little Kid Goku. So being able to pop it for free basically is very, very substantial, and it's very important. Next up, I have 2 copies of Mass Saiyan the Mysterious Warrior. This is also for Kid Goku because they flood the board really fast with 3 drops, 2 drops, or even the 1 drops. So what he does is when you play him with Overwhelm, he's an Overwhelm 5 for 1 cost. And when you Overwhelm him, you choose any number of your opponent's battle cards without blocker, for which the total cost adds up to 5 or less, and you send them to their warp. So Kid Goku will normally have 1 drops, 2 drops, 3 drops out. This is a way to get rid of multiple cards at once. And he's also double strike 20,000, so he's aggressive as well. Another thing to note is that if you wanted to, he is a 5-cost masked, so you could actually play him off of that masking the Beguiled Warrior. But I'm not too particularly fond of that because that means that you just -2 to your hand in a deck that already doesn't draw that much. So it would be risky, but it is a play you can do. So I just wanted to point that out. Next up, we have my favorite card in the game, the Bardock Zeno I was talking about earlier. SS3 Bardock, Power Unleashed. So he is a Zeno Evolve for 5 energy on a Bardock Zeno, which is the fully unleashed from earlier. So what Zeno Evolve is, you play this card in active mode by sending the specified card from your battle area to your warp. So this is even better. Zeno Evolve is also really good because I can overwhelm the fully unleashed Bardock. I can attack with him, and then I can evolve this card because he will come in active mode and he will replace the card basically. He is a triple strike 30,000, which is already really good. And he has an auto that says when a card evolves into this card, if your leader card is black, you may choose 5 cards from your warp and place them in the drop area. So you get to refill your drop area. So before I read the last card, this is actually really good because it enables the power burst, the sparking, because you actually put 5 cards back into the drop, so it enables the sparking. The last part of its auto is if you send 5 cards from the warp to the drop area, you send all of your opponent's battle cards to their warp. So this is very, very good because it bypasses barrier. It doesn't say choose. It just says send your opponent's battle cards to the warp. So it will get rid of anything except indestructible, except Zamasu cards. This is my favorite card in the game. I mean, for sure he costs 5 energy, but you're getting the benefit of swinging with the previous card. Then you put him in active mode. He's triple strike 30,000, and he wipes your opponent's field and refills your drop area. So I love this card. I mean, it's, like I said, it's literally my favorite card in the game. He looks badass. He's awesome, and I love my boy Bardock. Next up, we have minus Killy Zone. So it's a Badass Killy Zone is a 0-cost activate main that sends 3 cards from your drop area to your warp, and then you draw a card, and your opponent cannot activate counterplay skills for the duration of a turn. So again, while cards like Cold Bloodlust and Crusher Ball and any counterplay really don't like stop me or do much to me, I don't care that much about them. If I have the opportunity to avoid getting hit by them, then I might as well take it, right? So if I have this card and I'm about to play something like Foreseeing Hit, I'm obviously not gonna, even though I don't necessarily care that much if my opponent Cold Bloodlusts me, because I know it's coming. If I can avoid it, I really want to, because hit will allow me to see their card and take away a couple cards. So that's really the reason for me running Killy Zone. And finally, this is another kind of a spice card. So I actually run 3-star ball in my side now. So what 3-star ball does is activate main, you draw a card, and then I choose up to one of my battle cards, and it can attack battle cards in active mode for the duration of a turn. So this card's really good for decks like Kid Goku that maybe like to just let their cards sit in active mode, like the Android 8 or the little Kid Goku. And the reason I have 3-star ball in my deck is because of, let me drag back, because of, if you couldn't guess already, because of Topo. So Topo, if you like I said earlier, every time he kills a card, he's going to restand. So if I give him the capability with 3-star ball to swing at active mode cards and he doesn't get negated, my opponent doesn't have a negate, I'm just going to swing at your little cards in active mode and just wipe your entire board. It doesn't matter if it's in active mode or not. The reason it's a side card is because not every deck is going to be Kid Goku, Not every deck is going to have really important battle cards that are staying in active mode for me to swing at. So that's why it's a side card. So there you go. There you have it. So that's my 65 cards for now. There is one more card I did want to talk about, and I pulled it up. So I already got some of these because we went to a preliminary event, and I did want to talk about this card. So this is the Vegeta Time Regulator. And if you don't know what he does, he's a 2-drop 15,000 that says auto once per turn. When you play a battle card using Overwhelm, wow, I wonder who does that. Choose up to two black battle cards with an energy cost of 7 or less in your warp and place them at the bottom of your deck in any order. If you place a battle card at the bottom of your deck, you draw a card. So this card is much better than I thought it was. So before I actually had this card, when they revealed them on the website, we couldn't tell whether it said 7 or less or 2 or less on the cost of the card that you could throw back on your deck. So now that we know it's 7 or less, that's actually insane. This card is very good. I don't want to call it busted because it is hard to maybe get too many uses out of it because of removal nowadays, but even getting one proc of the auto can be really good because I can literally, the highest cost card I have in this deck is Scientist Fu. And I can throw Scientist Fu back into my deck with this Vegeta, which is absolutely nuts. The fact that I can, sometimes you'll mill your pieces that you need with your leader, right? What this card allows you to do is you can throw them back into the deck. So I really like this card because not only does it allow you to throw cards back into your deck, it also draws you a card, and he can be an aggro piece himself. I mean, he is 15,000, and you can protect them too if they swing at him. So, why I wanted to talk about this card is because, like I said, you can throw important pieces back into your deck, and you can even shuffle your deck. So you can play yellow with cards like Planet Vegeta or Successor of Hope to shuffle your deck, and this is going to be very, very good, especially towards the end of the game where your deck is really thin. If you haven't shuffled your deck and you're still getting value out of this card, like you played another one if it got removed or anything like that, by the time you get to the towards the end of the game, your deck is going to be very thin. So being able to throw very important cards back into your deck and then shuffling the deck is very good, because then you have a much higher chance of seeing those cards. And that's why I really like this card. However, I don't know if I'll be running it in my red build. The only card I might take out, like I mentioned earlier, is the Bardock Awakened Instincts for the Vegeta. But, it's, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's just a matter of testing, a matter of spending time with this. I do plan on spending time testing the other colors like yellow and blue. I don't think I'll test green because it doesn't have that much to offer, but yellow offers Bad Ring, it offers Nimbus. Some of the best cards in the game. You have the new Old Man, the Mutaito that's coming out through the World Tournament boosters. But blue offers Senzubin, which is insane in this card. I mean, if you're able to extend one energy in this deck, you can combo an extra card. You can overwhelm something like the Fu on turn 2. It's very good. So yeah, there you guys have it. I'm glad I was finally able to make this video. I stalled out a lot on it because I was busy, but I'm very glad I finally got to put this video out for you guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you guys learned something from it as well. I hope this was productive. If you want to hit me up, if you have any questions, you can find me on Facebook. My name is just Eric, ERIK. You'll see when I'll post this. I'll post this video on the Facebook too. But if you're just watching this on YouTube only, feel free to hit me up on Facebook, Eric Moyano Molina. I'll put it on the description as well. I want to shout out, like I mentioned earlier, I want to shout out my boy Marcus. I've been working with him on these decks. We're gonna make critgod great again. Yeah, man, there's so many people. Keith, I believe, was his name. He actually topped with Janemba recently. He got his invite to his regionals. Congrats to him on that. Very nice. Even though it wasn't Mass Saiyan, I'll forgive you this time. Congrats on that. But yeah, there's a buddy I work with on Discord. I talk to him. His username's Getum. Yeah, there's so many people. I can't thank everybody, but those are the three main ones. Thank you to everyone that's been supporting me, and thank you to everyone that showed interest in this. I had a lot of people ask me for my build after the PPG. I had a lot of people reach out to me, and I appreciate all of you. I really hope that you can get something out of this video. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hit me up if you want anything, and have a great one, guys.